Hello guys, my name is Alexandra. I'm a founder of AI CS Hub and the host of Customer Success Therapy podcast, the podcast that goes beyond frameworks and metrics where we uncover uncomfortable truths about the customer success, the place where we listen and don't judge. So before we tune in into this episode, I wanted to pause for a second and think, how actually many posts on LinkedIn do you see regularly about the sales to CS handoff? Hundreds actually. I am guilty of this too, because I write about this, I would not say pretty often, but also once in a while. But have you ever actually sit and think what this thing, the whole one, is called actually? That's change management, right? I was surprised too when I have sat with my guest who told me that. And I was, oh my God, that's true. We were creating all of these checklists, all of these templates, and all of these processes around one thing, where actually the whole time this was behavior change problem. So today my guest is Eleni Vorvis, who has been in GTM for 20 years. She has started in sales and moved to the customer success. From BDR to VP of Customer Success. Now she is fractional VP of Customer Success at Coach M and lead consultant at Celera Growth. If you're a customer success manager who is tired of hearing you need to be more strategic and you actually want to understand what's it about, this episode is for you. Let's tune in. Welcome back to the Customer Success Therapy podcast. And for those who are listening us on Spotify, let me introduce who I'm having today as my guest. So she has 20 years of GTM experience with a career that spans sales, partner success, and customer success at companies like Achievers, Black Duck Software, and Fair Marketing. Now working fractionally, she serves as VP of Customer Success at Coach M and a senior consultant at Salary Growth, while also mentoring and coaching CS professionals and founders. So outside of work, she is a traveler, a reader, strength training and bar class enthusiast, and always on the hunt for the next great restaurant in Boston. So welcome, please, Eleni Vorvis. Eleni, hello. It's so great to see you on my podcast.
Yes, great to be here. Thank you so much for having me, Alexandra.
I have a straight out question there. So why barre class? Because there is yoga, there is hot yoga, there is strength training. Why barre?
So bar class, I would say I fell into it by accident. I've been at my gym now for almost 4 years and started really focusing on working with a trainer, doing strength training, deadlifting, because it was something that I hadn't put into my routine when I was working out before. So then I saw bar class and I thought to myself, at first I didn't want to do it because I thought it was going to be like ballet. And I tried ballet. And then my background is both of my parents were born in Greece. So I also did traditional Greek dancing here in the US. I tried it and I really enjoyed it because the music was very uplifting. And while you are working at the bar, you're not doing moves that are just ballet. You're doing some basic
Yes.
things that are ballet movements, but it's an amazing workout. And so I would encourage people who like Pilates or maybe have done ballet in the past to try out the class.
So you actually mentioned one interesting thing, and I wanted to talk about it because when I've checked your LinkedIn profile, there is in this section languages, you have Greek, and I was wondering, wow. And actually, I think even from your last name, it's Greek name. Did you born in US or you've moved from Greece to
I was
US or
born in
your
the
parents?
US. Yeah, I was born
Okay,
in the
okay.
US, but both of my parents were born in Greece. My dad is from the south of Greece, from Sparta, which is an area I think many people know about because of ancient Greek history and the movie
Yes.
300, etc.
Okay, that's amazing. And do you know Greek language? Yes.
Yeah, so Greek was my first language. So when I
Okay.
went to kindergarten here in the States, I did not know how to speak any English. And so then I worked with a tutor at school for 2 months and then I became fluent. And then I also went to Greek school after elementary school. My brother and I would both go twice a week for grades 1 through 6. And so we would practice reading, writing, and speaking Greek. So I would say my Greek is pretty decent. When I go to Greece, I can communicate no problem. I would say when it comes to a business conversation, that would definitely be more challenging.
It's actually funny because, for example, my native first language is Ukrainian. And I would say when I speak my Ukrainian, I also can't find proper business words, especially about the customer success. So I'm mixing Ukrainian and English, and it probably sounds weird. So it's interesting because Greek is Balkan territory. So do you think that you have this Balkan like characteristics in yourself and you doing the business a little bit different that, I don't know, people who are, I don't know, native born US people and like so business obsessed? Because I think that what I've heard, and because I'm in Romania and Romania and Greece is very not far away, that people from Balkans are very straightforward. They're not sugarcoating. Do you feel this in yourself?
Yes. So I would say just growing up in the Greek culture, people are very direct. So it's not uncommon to have very lively debates, right? Where everyone is giving their opinion, but no one is getting. I think what I hone in on, and that has happened in my career over time, is finding the best way to be direct in certain cultures, right? In some cultures, it's fine to be just direct and say it like it is. In others, you have to maybe start off with some niceties or a compliment and
Yes.
then go into the thing that you maybe want to give feedback on. So it definitely is an adjustment and something I've had to work on in my career because I think delivery is very important, particularly with customers and also with your internal stakeholders. You're building relationships. And so I think the other thing that my Greek heritage has given me is just a passion. So I have a passion for customer success and helping out the community and learning from others.
I love that you have mentioned and that your Greek heritage is actually helping you with customers and with customer success. And it's a big advantage. So let's cover this part that you actually have 20 years of experience. And I think that's a lot. You also have been in sales and you right now are serving as fractionally as a VP of customer success. And I think that for those who are listening us who are from customer success, their first question probably would be how it is to be on the other side of the post sales.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I know when I think and I say 20 years, sometimes I have to remind myself of what my age. I was on a sales team and I've done sales activity. So I did do inside sales and then I was a BDR for a year. But my first role post university at IDC, they're a market research firm. They compete with Forrester and Gartner. Those are the two, I think, more familiar players. My title was a client service rep. So in that model, back at that time, IDC had a sales team that would acquire new logos, but also manage the relationships with existing customers and renew and grow them. And my responsibility was to book the contracts as they came in. We had a system that we used, and then to make sure that our customers had access to the research that they had purchased and access to talk to the analysts who were writing the research. So I think that was very early on, call it customer service, customer success. So some of those activities in working with existing customers, and then I got to see how the AEs were managing conversations with those customers around the renewals, I think was a good perspective because there are many startups in the SaaS world, right, that start off with sales owning some of those responsibilities. So to get to see that early on in my career helped me to understand how sales might approach it or how they were balancing their time between the new logo acquisition and the renewals. And being in sales, particularly a BDR, it gave me such a respect for that level of work. So I think because of my experience on the other side, I tend to have more empathy for that function and try to really understand that it can be different. Sales is also different at every organization, similar to CS. And so let's not be quick to judge each other as two functions that have to work together very closely. Let's understand how we are being motivated and compensated because I think a lot of the challenges arise when there's misalignment in those types of or shared metrics, etc., or people's past experience, right?
I here connect with you on this level because when I got to customer success, I was a founding CSM, but I had an opposite experience because usually startups are hiring CSMs when there are customers. I had an opposite situation. I was doing like you, both sales, and then I was a customer success for the customers whom I booked a contract. And I have doing this job for about 6 or 9 months until we grew and decided to separate. And I decided to focus separate on customer success. But yeah, I think that rejection humbles you very quickly and you never look back for this experience. And I think that that also helped me to understand the sale job, how it looks like, and then also how to correctly do this sales CS handoff, where actually a lot of SaaS companies has issues with. And I believe that you have this great experience. Can you give our listeners one tip about maybe this proper sales CS handoff?
Yeah, so I think the biggest piece of advice and something I've been very passionate in talking about is understanding that you have to go through change management in order to change and fix that process. You may have a list and a process for collecting the information and then asking sales, you have to fill this information out. We need it and we're going to have a meeting to talk about it. So it's one thing to collect the information and have the process for how then that gets shared. But in order for that to be effective, you need to take a step back and explain to the sales team why this information matters. Because we know there's a lot of other things that they have to work through in a sales cycle. There are the stages that they move through, that they are then collecting other information because they need that as a sales organization. The prospect is asking them for certain things and they're trying to collect as much as they can to move their champion and the decision maker, right, the executive sponsor, through that decision-making process. And we're trying not to elongate that sales cycle. But I think people are more apt to help you out and to give you the information if they can understand why and how it not only benefits the team that receives the information, but how that's going to help sales be better at their jobs, to close more deals, to close bigger deals, and have those be quality. I see closing a deal with a customer that then ends up ultimately not being successful. And that churn it affects everybody in every single department at the company. And so it's go through the change management process, tell people here is why we want this to happen and how it will help you. And then what CS can do in return to make this a feedback loop, right? We also need to support the small wins and share with them, here is how this really helped the implementation team or the CSM as part of the work you were doing as a salesperson. It's probably more than one piece of advice, but it's kind of all connected under the umbrella of change management.
That's actually such an amazing thing because I will be honest, I've never saw someone will describe this process and as change management. And I'm thinking right now that's so amazing because actually, if you think about leadership has so much empathy and patience when you name this change management because they know how it's hard, the actual change, rather than just calling it sales and CS handoff or the process or whatever. And the next thing is sharing with the sales the small wins, how actually something that you've both applied is a result of successful customer onboarding and journey. That's amazing because, yes, sharing small wins, we usually do this, and these advices are often given to our direct reports or to something, I don't know, when we win a logo or whatever, but never about this sales CS handoff process. You just take this information, you share with sales and say, hey, this is what we did, both amazing. And that's a result of, and the result is a successful onboarding of the customer. I'm still fascinated by this advice.
Yeah, I've been thinking about change management a lot, and I talk to many CS leaders, and I think we're so easily focused externally on our customers and their change journey when it comes to looking internally on our process. Yes, it's maybe we're asking somebody to do something differently, and it's a small thing that the changes, it doesn't matter how big or small the change is. It's how receptive people are to change and what is the thing that will the light bulb that will go off based on how they're motivated to adopt that change. Because there are many things we ask people to do. If we took a catalog of all of those things that are changing, then we're constantly in that type of cycle. And I think we forget that at times, and we just quickly say, well, it's not going to take you that long. You can adopt technology to help you with that. But is it going to click for that individual, and what's their motivation to do it?
with sales, with product, with other departments, why we are so impatient.
Yeah, and I think it's not only, I think everyone in the organization who is customer facing or in go to market, it tends to be impatient. And I think it's because of the culture. It's the culture and the environment that we have set up in this SaaS world of it's a startup, right? And we now are making a little bit of a shift, but growth at all costs. It's like, let's go, let's run, run, run. We have to be able to fail fast and go on and do these amazing things because there's a lot riding on that, right? There's investment that you've made maybe from there's bootstrapping, right? So it's like someone has given their own money. There's the pressure that that founder has to make the startup a success because they have to make payroll. They have a lot they stand to lose. And so the employees can kind of feel that pressure at times. Then there's folks that get that formal type of investment, and then you have to justify, we're giving you all this money. We want a return on our investment. And no, we don't want you to take your sweet time. There is a window that we expect things to happen. And so I think it's just the nature of the world that we are living in, that we are running so quickly and trying so much that we hit that burnout pattern.
Yes, and I like that you've touched this topic about the burnout because I remember when I have been already 3 years in my job at the tech company in IT, I figure out like why no one is talking that in such fast-paced environments you burn out so quickly. Yes, but because of these changes that happen so quickly, you need to adapt to this change, and you also need to keep up with everything that's going to change and with the pressure of earning the revenue, retain the customers, and doing better and better every time. And we are slowly going to my next topic because I think that we can't ignore the elephant in the room is AI, because it's another thing that it's basically another layer of pressure, and that leads also to burnout, to some, I don't know, anxiety, yeah, because 30,000 people from Oracle recently, 16% of the whole Snapchat was laid off because of how we are told because of AI. So that's another pressure. And do you have any particular thoughts about AI? I mean, how do you see it will go for SaaS companies?
Yeah, I mean, we can't have a conversation, right, in CS or in the just SaaS world or startup or everyday life without talking about AI. I have lost track of how many times I say this acronym every single day. So I think right now we are in a period of time where it's easy, right, to practice and learn things with AI to just build on our own. So the accessibility is there, which is great. But at the same time, it creates anxiety because it's like there's so many options to choose from. There's so many things you could focus on building. You hear other people talking about what they're doing, and there's that feeling of, oh, they're ahead of me. I don't want to be left out. That almost a little bit like an imposter syndrome, but this fear of becoming obsolete. What if I don't keep up and then I'm not relevant anymore in the experience that I bring to the table? So I think there's a certain level of stress that most people have around it. I also think there's just so much technology that is out there that's not going to exist 24 months from now. So there will be a leveling out of what is the tech that really matters to SaaS companies, and then what are the startups that really were focused too niche and they're not able to get the investment or the traction with a customer base. And so I always tell people just hold on, do what you can, right? It's good to upskill yourself. There's a lot of free learning out there in communities that you can join. And so you have to embrace it, but don't feel like you're being left behind, because there will be a way for people to get up to speed, same as there's been with other technology that's been introduced in the history.
Yes.
Right. So I was having a conversation with a couple of leaders to say, well, this is probably what happened when the internet was first invented, or things moved to the cloud, or talking like Web3 then became the hot topic. And I think there will be roles to support the work that we do, but I don't think that the CSM role is going to turn into, oh, you have to be building agents and be like this AI scientist. That's not going to happen. We will leverage AI. There will be a role that helps us to leverage AI, and we can't forget the human The human element is so important. And I think that's something that people are not necessarily keeping in mind along the way. It's like, how do we, again, it's a change management piece. How are we getting people bought into this? Like, what's the benefit for me to do this over this other option or way of doing things? And we know our customers for certain conversations are not going to want to talk to AI. They're going to want to talk to a physical person. So people call them soft skills. I think their strategic skills are going to be even more important in the way that we have a conversation and carry our customers to success. Is that's not going to change anytime soon. So I'm not worried about job loss on the CS side. We may have maybe less CSMs working on the team because AI is more efficient, but I think it's a role that a human element will need to persist for quite some time.
When we have been talking about AI, I thought that it's so funny that they has such an amazing marketing because I don't remember, for example, when I graduated, one of the requirements was you need to know how to use spreadsheets or Excel or whatever there is out there. But there was no like this pressure or like if you don't know, you will never find a job or you're behind. No, everyone's telling me, oh, you don't know? Well, you will find a job and you will figure out when you will come there on your first day. You don't have other choice. And now with AI, there is such like this pressure, like you haven't used such any last AI tool or whatever. You didn't try last Claude update, or you're left behind. But that's not true because that's not possible.
Yeah, I think we're just jumping to conclusions and we need to just take a step back. And I think we need to just relax a little bit because you will learn. And if you're experimenting already and you're trying to fundamentally understand the benefit that it brings, that's important. Particularly, I think companies that are AI native probably are doing a better job or should be baked into the culture. You have an AI native product, help your workforce who's not technical understand how they can leverage AI internally to make people more efficient, to take away the tasks that take up space in our brains. And we talked about how older generations would say, oh, you sit in front of a computer, how could you be tired? The mental computing that is going on for us every single day, the professional plus the personal things we have to remember to do, I think it's tiring. It's a different tiring than the physical labor that was happening by the past generations. Both types of fatigue shouldn't be ignored, right? And when are we going to maybe pause and say, maybe it's too much access to technology? I wish I had remembered it exactly. I saw something on Instagram that a friend had posted, and it basically talked about how we spend every moment of free time accessing tech. We go on a walk and we're listening to a podcast. We are cooking dinner and we have music on. We are watching TV, but then we're on social media at the same time. So we're constantly connected to devices. We can't take a moment of quiet for ourselves away from technology or not. But I think that we are programmed now to just feel like if we're not on the technology, something is wrong. We should be doing it. We should be thinking about it. And I think we're all just addicted in the end, which is the saddest thing of all.
I also have this feeling. And I think since last year, I started walking with my dog without any podcast, without any music, just to feel this experience when I don't connect it to any technology. And I think that you're right. It's kind of crazy because there is so many reports that are proving that multitasking is bad. It's lowering your cognitive all the functions. But at the same time, any other CEO of AI company, they're pushing us to use multiple, even not one, multiple AI agents in during the work day for different reasons. So yeah, that's crazy. I hope that it will slow down a little bit, and yeah, we still save our sanity.
Yeah. I mean,
Let's
that's a
get
good
back to
point.
yes. Let's get back to the customer success. So I know that because you're in sales and you did all this, I would say you had experience of the whole sales cycle from signing a contract to having this customer and probably maintaining it. And I'm sure that you have the same opinion that customer success should own revenue. Am I right?
Yes, 1,000%. And that's always been my perspective. So I'm very happy to see that There are others who were not on board who are now jumping on board. And I'm sure they're thinking, why did we ever give those that thought from the beginning CS should own revenue a hard time? Because there were these critics out there being pretty vocal about it. And so for me, it just felt like it's a natural progression that if you are owning the relationship with the customer, they don't want to go back and talk to a salesperson. They are
Yes.
talking, the relationship is with you, focusing on getting them to hit their business goals and have a quantifiable outcome, which will then continue the relationship. It makes sense that they will trust your opinion to guide them. If they haven't gotten to that outcome, then I don't think then you haven't earned the right to expand that relationship, right? If fundamentally they're not hitting the goals that they set out to when they originally worked with you. Their use case is great, but at the end of the day, how is that impacting their business? Someone needs to make a financial decision and they're not going to sign up with us if they don't see an ROI. It's just the fact. It's customer success as it exists the last few years and will continue to be that way.
You are much more experienced than I am, and you have been in this field also longer. Can you please let me know who's pushing against this narrative that CS should own revenue? Why do you think that it even happened? It happened because, I don't know, naturally CEO were thinking that because we are doing the customer like relationship, we can't sell, or you have some other thoughts?
I think it's because of the way just CS was fundamentally set up. And you know what? Back when it started, that was probably okay because you're learning what it takes, particularly in SaaS, right? Because customer success, I think, became most popular in SaaS. And then it's now you see it in healthcare, education, financial services. It was just a way to be able, I think, to create a distinct line between here is what sales is doing, here's what is happening pre-sale, and here's what is happening post-sale. And at that time, customers were renewing because they were happy. We don't use that word anymore. Our job was to delight customers. And if they were delighted and happy in using the platform, they were able to make that investment. Budgets were different, economic conditions were different. So I think that individuals made assumptions about what the capabilities were of a customer success team or what was really the focus. And maybe it was, we need to implement this successfully. The software needs to work. We need to get that feedback to make sure that it's worked. And then we progressed through SaaS and how products get built and how easily it is to roll out new code, et cetera, with the advancements in technology. So then I think people started to think about, okay, well, now that we're owning this relationship and we know so much about the customer, why don't we take some of the pressure off of the sales team? Because I think then there was this realization of sales can't do both quite effectively because the new logo acquisition takes time, especially if it's an enterprise sale. It's a longer sales cycle. There's a lot of information. And for them to have to handle both, does that really make sense? Is it going to be the best use of their time? And what? So I think that those early adopters of that model thought, why don't we try it out with customer success? Let's start with renewals. That's an easy conversation as part of the easy in the sense that it's a natural flow in the conversation since you're working with the customer on their entire journey post sales. So let's start with that and then look into the, expansion of the revenue. So I think we've learned with each decade or each 5-year increment, we've learned more and more. And I was lucky enough to work at organizations early on when I began my CSM career that was the way that they were thinking. And to me, it made sense. And I had come from a sales background. So I'm like, I can do this work. It doesn't seem foreign to me. So maybe a lot of former CS folks were in sales and said, hey, we can translate these skills over here and make people successful in a renewal motion.
Yes, and it's kind of interesting because I think there are two sides. There are people who, in my circle, who progressed to customer success from the customer support. And for them, this owning the revenue is difficult. Others who actually decided to do the jump and move from sales to customer success, for them, that's very easy. And I hope that since seems collectively agreed that, okay, CS should own revenue, I think that we will not get back to this question anymore as a collective SaaS and customer success community. Okay, so can you please tell me and guide, so you have worked in different companies. Why you've decided to move like in this fractional consultancy space?
Yes, that's a great question. So it was definitely an event that forced my hand, but I had been thinking about it prior to, so I got laid off. Prior to that, I started to think about what would a world look like if I were to go out on my own and do some fractional consulting work. I had people in my circle who had gone out and done that. So one of my best friends is a product marketing consultant and she started her own business in 2019. I got laid off in 2023. I had seen examples of people doing it around me and listening to the way that they would talk about the ownership of their work and the flexibility of schedule, like you are your own boss, but then also the things that made it really difficult. You're responsible for business development. You have to do a lot of networking and you're wearing a lot of hats. So the layoff then kind of forced me to really think about what do I want to do next? And I didn't make any immediate decisions. I said, you know what? I'm going to just take some time to relax and just focus on myself, continue on with my fitness journey, because that was a little bit early on into really focusing on working with like a trainer and becoming like physically fit. So I didn't rush to make a decision. And I was in a financial position not to rush, right? I've always been an individual who has been very mindful with my money and making the proper investments and not spending frivolously, but being really careful with how I spend my money. I think that's always been ingrained in me ever since I was a young child. So I was like, okay, now's the time to have an actual break in your life. You haven't had that in 2 decades. So, relax a little bit and you'll figure it out. And when your mind is clear, then you can make a decision that's not based on emotion. So I decided I love startups. I love what founders are trying to build, and I'm very passionate about customer success. So I did want to carry that forward in working with companies in a fractional capacity or providing consulting. So I thought now's the time in my life to try it out. And if I really don't like it and I fail at it, I can go back and get a full-time role. But it's going to give me the opportunity to really focus on the parts of CS that I care the most about, that I feel that I bring my expertise to the table to help out these companies and to help out individuals. And I'm glad that I made the decision. It hasn't been, I would say, easy. What is anything that you go and do out on your own? There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of ups and downs. But I knew that going into this because I took the time to talk to several people who had made the leap. And I said, you know what? I'm going to commit to this 100% because I also had people in my ear saying, well, what if you went back and got a full-time job and then just tried to do this on the side? And I said, there is no way to be able to do both for myself personally and be successful at then making the transition out. It would stress me out too much. That's a lot of workload for somebody to do both things. So I'm going to dive right in, as is my personality, and try this working for myself 100% of the time and see how it goes. And the path has brought me to my most recent focus, which is more doing these workshops with organizations and really enabling the future generation of CSMs that are then going to be leaders, or CS teams that I think have the right attitude. They just need a little bit of learning.
I think this is actually such an amazing story. I like so many elements in this. First of all, you are not trying to sell this Instagram successful success. How am I saying this? The second, that you did a pause, that you actually give yourself a time and space to think about it, and then you started, and that you actually are so honest that, and I agree with you, there is no way, if you're committed to something, that you can do both things at the same time on the same great level, because you either will be a not very good employee, or you will do not this like side hustle or whatever on a great level, and something, and you need to choose. So yeah, that's actually amazing story without any sugarcoating, and I'm so grateful that you've shared your past, because I think that with these current layoffs, people are their start immediate thought is like, okay, I will go and start consulting or coaching or whatever, without thinking, okay, maybe I need even to pivot to another career, or I can really pause and think what else I can do. Or, and even think maybe consultancy is not even my thing. I was actually so used to full-time job and I'm okay with this. Yes, and I really need to take just time, relax, maybe redo my CV and get back to the search of full-time job. Even if the everyone is telling that the job market is awful, I will be able to find something for me. So yeah, thank you for this. Okay, so as we are ending our podcast, do you have any one tip or advice that you would like to share with our listeners?
So I would say my tip is you don't have to do it alone. What I absolutely adore about the CS community is how wonderful people are, even people you are just meeting for the first time, right? You and I do
Yes.
not know each other, but we've been able to bond over a common experience and other things that make us human. So I think I sometimes run into people who are a little bit more timid, and I can understand that. But I would say you would be so amazed at how welcoming people are if you just reach out. I naturally am doing this as a part of my, my working for myself and just building those relationships, because a lot of the work gets done through word of mouth in this space. People will want to ask you, well, have you worked with X, Y, and Z person or this type of technology? They make referrals all of the time because they trust that person's opinion. So if you want to just build relationships, it really just starts with reaching out to somebody. Maybe there's something that they've posted that you really appreciate, or something you see in their background that you want to learn from, and you just want to take the time to do a virtual coffee. I would say you're not going to regret making that ask. Most people do say yes, and if they're busy, they'll tell you another point in time to reach out to make that introduction happen. So reach out, connect with people. If anybody, my message today resonates with them, please connect with me on LinkedIn and send me a message. I'd be happy to chat.
That's actually, I think, with this AI and digital world, that's such an amazing advice. And I really appreciate that you given, because I think the same way. Like, if you like someone post and you would like to chat with them, just reach out. The worst that they will do, they will just tell that they are just busy. No one will think that you're a crazy person. I thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Eleni, for coming today to the Customer Success Therapy podcast. Please follow Eleni and make sure to subscribe to our podcast, and I will hear you next time.